Okay, so what do the Warriors do with their draft pick? They have a 48% chance of getting the 5th pick, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4 individually are at like 13% each. And we saw with last lottery, I mean, you could be projected very high and you could drop, you could be projected low and go really high. It's all a possibility. So I guess the first thing to think about is, before we get into the idea of them potentially trading the pick, is if we look at all the upcoming prospects, which one could be most interesting for the Warriors? Which one would they be willing to take in? I mean, we can do a whole spiel about, well, the Warriors would only like a certain type of player. They traded for Andrew Wiggins. Now, maybe it was just because of the draft pick. Maybe they just really did not love D'Angelo Russell and his fit with that team. But they already traded for a guy who hasn't looked great. So maybe they're confident enough in what they're doing with the spacing of Clay and Steph and Draymond's leadership and all that stuff, to where they can take a guy who doesn't look perfect, whether it's his character or how smart of a player he is or whatever. So anyway, if we look at what Golden State needs, I mean, they're pretty much set point guard through power forward, and they've got Pascal off the bench. So just in terms of fit, James Wiseman would be the guy. But the Warriors have also banked on just getting a couple of centers who aren't terrible and devoting all their money to more of the skill positions. Now, maybe you think Wiseman is just that good and he can be rim protector, super athletic, finishing around the rim and all that stuff, and being really, really great at all the big man things. Then perhaps they could go with him. But if not that, you think about another ball handler. Like, would they really want LaMelo Ball? I think it's fair to be doubtful about that fit. I mean, maybe you think LaMelo is just the best player and you take him, but you don't want the ball out of Steph Curry's hands, even if he's great off the ball, I know that, but you don't want to take it out of his hands for LaMelo Ball, unless you think LaMelo is really that good. It should be said, if they're going to draft anybody but a center, then it's safe to assume that the guy will be coming off the bench. Whether that matters or not, I don't know. I guess similar things you could say about LaMelo probably go to Killian Hayes as well. I mean, I just don't know if the Warriors would really draft a primary ball handler like that. Because Killian Hayes off the ball, while his shooting projects to be pretty good, you're not maximizing his skill set at that point, unless you think he's more destined to be an off-ball player, but that would go against what everybody thinks about him up to this point, Now, Anthony Edwards is interesting because you'd think the Warriors might be able to transform him into a multi-position defender and all that, and he wouldn't have the burden of being a primary scorer right away, which I think is good for him because while he put up points, his shooting was rough, his streaky, overall not great, his handle needs to get a little better, his overall reading of the game needs to improve as well, and if you're asking him to be your main guy, if you're Cleveland or whoever, I could picture that being too much for him. Whereas with Golden State, he wouldn't need to do that. He could come off the bench, play 20-something minutes a game. And I just feel like he could get more open shots and that type of thing. So that could be good for him. Maybe Golden State would view it that way. I mean, in a way, you could kind of view him and Wiggins to be sort of similar in that regard, Like the handle and the shooting, not as great as you'd like him to be, but the stuff around him is so good, it's like, dude, you're just taking wide open corner threes. Like, if you can't make these, then you can't make them anywhere. So we'll have to see. Now, Tyrese Halliburton, to me, is the most Warriors-esque guy, because he's 6'5", he's a wing, 6'8" wingspan, team first guy, reads the game very well, and he is a really, really good passer. However, his one-on-one defense is not awesome, and his shooting percentages are good, but his form is really awkward. And it could be one of those things where you're a good shooter in college, you go to the NBA, you take a step back, and also bigger defenders are closing out on you, and you might suck from outside. Who knows? But just the way that Tyrese Halliburton looks at the game of basketball and the way that he can contribute with passing and rebounding and making the right play all the time, like that seems like a very Warriors guy. But it's also like, do you want to draft a dude like that with one of the top 5 picks? I think in a normal draft, no. But in this particular draft, yeah, maybe. And then from there you talk about Kongwu and Vassell and Wiseman, and who knows? Kongwu is more of an athletic 4/5. Vassell's a defensive wing. I talk about those two every time I talk about the draft. And then Wiseman's, pretty big wild card. Anyway, if we talk about the Warriors' potential of trading the pick, so they've got this trade exception of $17 million. The question I have, though, is there anyone who makes less than $17 million who is good enough to trade that high of a pick for? I don't know. I mean, I've seen some rumors that they like Aaron Gordon. Okay. I don't really think I need to trade one of the top picks in this draft for him. I feel like I can get Aaron Gordon for next year's first-round pick that's going to be in the 20s. Now, it should also be said, the Warriors are going to be hugging the luxury tax, especially because it seems like the luxury tax is going to be lower than we initially projected, and all that plays a role in this, certainly. But anyway, if we move past the exception and just talk about the team itself, I mean, unless you were going to put Wiggins in a move, I don't know how you could get yourself a really, really awesome player with the pick, because it's just simply a money situation at that point. Because, Wiggins is going to be making $29 million next year, but it's like, does anybody really want Wiggins? I don't know. This also, again, brings into question just how much does Golden State really believe in Wiggins, and how much did they just want the draft pick from the T-Wolves? I don't really know. There's a chance that it depends on who's available. But let's think about it like this, right? Apologies to Wizards fans, because this is always the one that pops up, but let's say Bradley Beal just decides, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here anymore, all that stuff. Would Wiggins and the 3rd pick be enough for Bradley Beal? I think I've said about all I can say without us knowing exactly where this pick is, and without more information coming out about how the Warriors really feel about this draft.